Hi, my name is Heidi Lechner. I'm here to talk to you today about thematic film units instead of subplans. Originally, my colleague Emily Kerner and I did this presentation together in fall of 2018, and we presented it at ICTFL, and we were awarded Best of Illinois 2019. Due to COVID, we were unable to present as Best of Illinois at Central States Conference in March, and hence we were then invited by Central States to present today at the Virtual Summit. I would like to say thank you to Illinois Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages and the board members for nominating us as Best of Illinois. I would like to thank Central States on the Conference on the Teaching of Foreign Languages for inviting us to speak, and also then to Central States for prompting us to present here today to NFLC's Virtual Summit. So I teach in Illinois. I'm a high school teacher of German, and I am in Libertyville, which is about an hour north of Chicago. My colleague Emily Kerner is the Spanish teacher, also at Libertyville, and unfortunately, also due to COVID, we were unable to present together, so that's why you just see me today. So let's get started. Today, we are going to create communicative activities for a film unit, and I'm going to show you some summative assessments that reflect all three modes that can then be used for after the film unit. So, in the image on the screen, you see a giant stack of papers with an X through it. To me, that represents all the film packets that have been written and are handed out these days. Students want to see a film. Film is such a large part of our culture, and it's more important than to watch and to be able to observe the beauty of the film and the music and the interactions on the screen, rather than just listening to dialogue. Because when we hand kids that packet of questions, that's all we're doing. We're asking them to listen and make it an interpretive listening assignment to fill in the questions. What Emily and I want to do today is show you how you can take the onus off yourself to teach the students things ahead of time so they can appreciate the film in its full value without the packets, and then have a lively and interesting discussion in various ways after watching the film. So, it is a true interpretive audiovisual experience once students start being able to watch movies in the way that we're about to show you. Okay, so how did we get here? Well, like I just said, I've been teaching for over 20 years, and yes, I have my own share of film packets, but it occurred to me a few years ago, we're making all these thematic units instead of textbooks in our curriculum. Why are we still relegating film to just an afterthought or a subplan, instead of really focusing on the film itself and letting students appreciate the beauty of the film? So, as you can see, we have Harry Potter as our theme, because when we created this presentation, Emily teaches Spanish, I teach German, and we wanted a universal topic. So, some of the sample items I show you today will have Harry Potter as a theme for that reason. Okay, so what is a thematic film unit? It's just like you would expect in perhaps a reading unit. You're going to heavily front-load vocabulary pertinent to the unit. You're going to have previewing strategies where you learn about the movie beforehand. You learn the characters, the plot. You interact with themes that are important. You might learn a song from the trailer. And then you watch the movie in its entirety. And you do a few mid-comprehension checks, but there's no writing during the film. After the film, you then have post-viewing activities and summative assessments. I usually spend 3 to 4 weeks on a film unit, and I show movies in all levels. I teach all 4 levels of high school German. Even in novice year, the students watch their first movie probably in January, and feedback I've gotten is that students actually comprehend about 50 to 70% just from the preparation that they've gotten. So, here we go. First, I'm going to talk about before we watch the movie. So, to me, the most important thing is vocabulary in teaching a world language. You really need to front load the vocabulary so that students are able to not just understand the film, but also interact with it, right? Because the whole point of this thematic unit is that students are talking about themes and characters and plot. And so I usually curate a list of 30 to 40 words in Quizlet. And yes, you can have hundreds of words for students to be able to understand everything, but that's not the point here. The point is we want them to have a solid grasp after about a week of preparation of the vocabulary that they'll need to really talk about the film. So I use all sorts of games. I play an academic game every single day in class. I don't relegate games to special occasions or Fridays. In fact, we have 45-minute periods, and I would say I spend 10 minutes a day in all my levels working on just vocabulary for the unit. So we switch it up. We play charades, heads up, Quizlet, all the things that I've pictured here. Pictionary, I play, oh, by the way, I play everything in groups. No one, in a maximum 2 to 4 people in a group. Nobody is allowed to play just as a whole class. Like, for instance, Fly Swatter. I've played that years ago, and all you had was 2 students who were interacting with the language, and the rest of the kids were just sitting there watching, not paying attention. So what I've done is I've taken any old games like that, and I've made it 2 small groups. So, for instance, I would have the kids are one-to-one on Chromebooks in Libertyville. So I'll give them a Google Slides show with all the words in it, and then somebody can be the leader and call out the word, and 2 kids can play. Is it as fun as exciting as a Fly Swatter? No, but at least all the kids are interacting with the vocabulary. Pictionary, like I said, we have a lot of whiteboards around the room, so I have students up and moving and working there. Or if they prefer on their Chromebooks, there's a really great app, awwapp.com. That's an interactive whiteboard. You can use regular whiteboards that we also have personalized ones with markers and erasers. Okay. So, here's something I'd like to share with you. This is a super time saver. I don't have any textbooks anymore, and so these are thematic film units also. So all of my vocabulary that I've created for all my classes are hosted in Quizlet. And so what I've done is I'm able to create flashcards to use with all these games. And if you go here, I'll show you in print in Quizlet. If you have your set ready to go, you go to choose layout, large, and then you choose print images if you have them. And if you do, you open up, and what do you get? You get this. So basically, it's all your cards sorted, and then you take your scissor, and you cut up the cards, and you can print it on colored paper to color code for your unit, however you want to do it. But then you have a perfect heads up card, or you have the pile in the middle, and then the kids all go around the table, and then you have a charades, or you have a Pictionary card that they have to use. So this is the sample set that they're using then for the entire 3 to 4 week unit of 30 to 40 words. Categories, if you're not familiar with that, that's fabulous for an introductory because it familiarizes them with all of the vocabulary. What students do are they take all my flashcards from a set, they lay it on the table, and then the 4 of them have to discuss, how are these words related? How can they possibly go maybe in a category together, and what would be the title of this category? So then they have all the cards that they then have to coordinate together and categorize and write on the board, and then we have a discussion about the different categories. And of course, all of this is done in the target language. Okay, so now we front-loaded the vocabulary, and now we need to meet the characters, right? So here's an example of an activity that I made up that's called meet and greet. So students walk right in the room, and they get a little slip of paper from me, and it has a short description of a character. For instance, my name is Penelope Clearwater, and I am Percy Weasley's girlfriend. I am a prefect in Ravenclaw House during Harry's 2nd year. So the students get this little slip of paper, and let's say there's 10 characters that I write up and 30 students in the class. So 3 kids are overlap, which is fine. All they're doing is reading clearly and slowly to a partner, and then listening to their partner's reading back to them. And they're trying to understand. So they're trying to pick out the names, pieces of information. And these are all, I write all these specifically for the level that they're at. So simplistic for novice, obviously. So what they do is I put up a timer. This is the first half of class. They're just listening and reading, and it's very low stress for them. At the end, I say, okay, now we're having a quiz, but it's obviously not really a quiz. I have a Kahoot ready. And so then the kids get to interact, and an example question would be, who is Percy Weasley's girlfriend? And the kid that has the little piece of slip of paper with Penelope Clearwater gets all excited because they're like, oh, I understand that. I can make that connection. And so the students are able to pick up, and it's just a interactive way, rather than just reading through a list of characters, to get them to get used to the different people. Okay. We also need to understand the plot. Now, when teachers talk to me, they're like, what about spoilers? You're going to ruin the film. Well, yes and no. I mean, at some point, these are novice intermediate learners that need to have an idea of what's going on in the movie for them to understand anything. There's so much in films that they're not going to get that they can strive for in the dialogue and in the scenery and in the music. So an understanding of the plot is very important. So this is one of my favorite activities. It's called a running dictation. It's been around for a few years in a variety of adaptations that I've seen. What it is kind of a low prep but high energy activity. And it's basically running, and one kid is dictating. So what you do, or what I usually do, is I take the plot and I break it down into maybe 10 chunks of 1 to 2 sentences each. And those sentences I'll put on posters around the hallway outside the classroom. So students come in, they sit in their groups of 4, and they immediately I break them up into 4 roles. So there's the runner, there's the writer, there's the artist, and then there's the cheerleader. So the runner begins, runs in the hall, finds a poster, and starts memorizing. They memorize as much as they can, they run back, they dictate, and the writer or the scribe writes down everything that they're told. Yes, they can clarify, they can ask for spelling, sometimes the kids can't really memorize, so they'd have to do word by word and run back and forth. Once they have done that, then they hand it off to the next person, who is then going to artistically render images of the material that they find on the from their scribe. So here's a fabulous infographic from Martina Becks from her website Comprehensible Classroom. In the middle here is one of my students, Lisa, who is reading. This is an upper level, so I have kind of a longer paragraph that the students have to transcribe. And then on the right is a sample. Lisa's running back, she's dictating, Gottfried is writing, and then he passes it to Wolfram, who is creating images and pictures. So here, Emily last year recorded a short clip of her class doing a running dictation. There you have it. So this is just a fun activity you can do also on the other side. When you finish the film, you can do it for reviewing the plot. I also do it for meeting the characters, and then they have to create a family tree afterwards as an add-on. You can have the students, when they're finished with a dictation, unscramble chronologically. So there's a variety of things you can do with this activity. Okay, so we've learned the pertinent vocabulary. We've met the characters. We have a general idea of what's going on with the plot. Scenes. I really love images. I mean, I think all of us do as world language teachers. They're just so expressive, and there's so many things you can do with them. So I tend to collect as many scenes as I can from the film. I just search images on YouTube and put them in a PowerPoint. And I use these in a variety of different ways throughout the unit, and this is just one. One of my favorites and the students' favorites over the years. It's an art description. So I'll take a movie scene and I'll throw it up on the board from the PowerPoint, and student A will be looking at it, and student B turns their desk around so their back is facing. So all they're doing is listening to student A's description, and then they're drawing whatever they hear. So how about we try it? as a little interactive moment, why don't you grab a paper and pencil, and when I start describing, you just draw what you hear. Okay? Ready, set, go. In the picture, there are 4 people. On the right-hand side is a very, very tall man. He is talking to 3 children on the left-hand side. Of the children, there is a girl on the left, and a boy in the middle, and a boy on the right. The very, very tall man has long curly brown hair and a long beard, and he seems to be wearing a fur coat. The children are wearing what looks like to be black graduation robes, and they're wearing colorful scarves that are red and yellow striped. The girl has long curly hair, the boy in the middle has red short hair, and the boy on the right has dark hair. They're standing on grass, so they're outside, and behind them looks like a church or an old building. Okay, are you ready to see what you drew? Ta-da! So, this is obviously a scene from Harry Potter. That's Hagrid and Hermione, Ron, and Harry Potter. So, a lot of people ask, well, there's no way my novice students could do this. Well, think about it. They know clothing. They know colors. They know physical characteristics. They know how to say the basics of left, right, center, and I teach them background, foreground. They probably know the word grass. So there's a lot they can do, and it's a really exciting way for them to use their language and to get their point across. So using these images, like I said, I have a variety of activities. An add-on that I learned in a drama course is a technique using the pictures. So I would keep the picture up a different day or different activity, and it's called freeze frame. So you're going to have silent roles and active roles. For instance, the silent ones are usually the quieter kids. So you put up the picture, and then you'll ask for volunteers. So for instance, here, I'll use the picture again. Hagrid, somebody stands just like him, and then 3 students stand like the other characters. And then you have the more lively students who are willing to go out on a limb, and what they'll jump up, and they'll stand behind the student who's acting like a statue, and then they'll think about, what can this person be thinking or saying? So we're trying to get ourselves in the image and get an idea of what's in the movie and what's going on. So for instance, I might stand behind Hagrid's picture or student and say, "You people are very short." Or I might stand behind Ron in the middle and say, "You really need a haircut, mister." And they could be funny, they could be serious, they could be any manner of things, but it just gets you to start thinking about, what's going to go on in this film, and really get to see the images that the students then recognize when they are watching the film. Okay, so now we have gone through the vocabulary, we've gone through the characters, and we've gone through the plot, and then we've seen some sample movie stills. So now we're ready to see the movie. Now, like I said, we've spent 3 to 4 weeks on this, and we now want to watch the film. The film takes between 3 and 5 full classes, right? And I always show it in the target language with subtitles in the target language. So there's no English involved, even at novice level. And I know people argue about this all the time. What's the best method? It just works for me. I teach German, so I only have 4 years with the students, and I try to squish in as much as I can in that time. So, students are watching the film in class, and they're not writing. Remember, there's no more packets, there's no more questions. They've already prepared for a week to 2 weeks ahead of time and interacted with the characters, like I said, and the topics and the themes. So now, at the start or at the end of the class, depending how I feel, I might ask them to write a hashtag summary, or write a tweet, or here's a little slip of paper, a post-it, write a question you still have post it on the door on the way out. So there's a lot of little things you can do in just even 3 to 5 minutes at the end of class, and then you can start class the next day with a summary of, okay, we had these questions, who can answer them, for instance. Standing plot summary is just something I invented on the fly a few years ago, and my students are very close knit because they're mostly together for 4 years, so they really get to know each other, and they're cooperative and happy to do some of these crazy Frau Lechner activities. So this one was just to get them moving and talking. So one day I said, all right, everybody stand up. You have to retell the plot one person at a time in chronological order in order to get a seat again and then to leave. So this is right before the bell. The kids were in a little panic, but that's right. So they stood up, and then, of course, you call on the weaker students usually first, and they give a sentence about what they saw that day, and then someone else continues. And the students really patrol each other and say, that happened later, or that happened first, and then they make each other go back and correct themselves. So it's a very quick, there's no prep, and the students talk. Even though you're watching a movie for 40 minutes, they still speak some language before they leave the classroom. Okay, so if you have those packets, or your colleague says, I spent hours and hours on these things, I can't just throw away all my work, well then recycle them. Chop up and slice up the questions that you have and hand them out to the kids at the end of the period, and do a quiz trade activity where they read their question to a partner and the partner answers. The partner asks their question, you answer, the kids trade, and they move on. And that way they can mingle in 5 minutes and maybe answer 5 to 7 plot questions. And you have used the questions from the packet. Okay, so what are we going to do afterwards? Well, we're going to have an interpretive reading. We're going to use an infographic. We're going to go on Amazon and read a review. I have used YouTube videos that feature cast interviews from TV shows, and then I put it in Edpuzzle. Presentational speaking. This is a fun alternative. Makerspace was hugely popular with the primary school crowd a few years ago. And basically, you take recyclables and junk, and then you give it to the kids, and they have to create a theme or a character or whatever you tell them. So for instance, I would say, I think of this activity, pick one of the characters and create something that represents 3 personality traits and 2 physical characteristics. And then all they have are egg crates and different things, and they come up with the wildest explanations, but it's something that they're then using when they're giving a presentational speech to their partner. You can also have them write about it. They can do a flip grid. It's just a fun class for them to start thinking in alternative ways. So I have a couple interpersonal speaking assignments. One of them is a salad bowl discussion. The thinking behind this is that salads are colorful. They're not just green. They have lots of different fruits and vegetables. So just like our language, we don't speak in just simple sentences. We try to include sentence stems and rejoinders and interjectives. And so we take some of these. For instance, I think that, or this is similar to, but what about? And then you print these sentence stems and you put it on different colored paper, just like you would have in a salad. And you put it in a little bowl or in a plastic bag. And then you give the kids topics, and as they're picking these things up, they're using them in the conversation. So for instance, you would reuse the film photos again that I said I use the images a lot. And the kids would then pick their salad pieces, and they would then use it in the discussion. I use a lot of timers in class, keep them online. That's just a YouTube video you can include in your Google Slides. Back to the topics, you can use themes, good versus evil in Harry Potter. You can use quotes from the movie and have them discuss how it applies. Lots of things going on there. Presentational writing, I love one-pagers. I discovered it 2 years ago, and if you haven't used them, you have to Google it or email me, and I will tell you what I've done with it. It's a really cool way for kids to visually doodle, write little images, captions, and show their comprehension of the movie on a piece of paper in a colorful, fun way. It does take time. It takes about 2 to 3 classes, but then they have this awesome resource that they can then use for an interpersonal speaking, or this could be their writing prompt. They can do a flip grid again on this one. It's really been fantastic, and the students seem to really enjoy it. Okay, and one of my favorite interpersonal speaking task is the footprint task. So basically I take the footprint, I find the image online, and I put in the name of the character and a little picture on the other foot so they know who they're talking about. And then I lay them around the room facing each other. So as you can see in my picture, my two young men here, they're conversing, and it's a first person activity. So they're using the I pronoun. They are the character, and they're interacting directly with the other character, which makes them think in the shoes, obviously, of the character. And then we do this an entire period. So they're walking around the room every 3 minutes, becoming a different character, talking about how they interact in the film, or it's a month later, after the film, movie, have this conversation. I come up with a variety of different topics, and the kids really like this one. Okay, so what did we do today? Well, hopefully I introduced you to a whole new world of showing movies in an enjoyable way, and showed you some communicative activities that you can use and ways to assess them in all the modes. And we got rid of the big packet, I hope. So I have a little feedback that I asked students for a few years ago, and it reiterates everything that I said today. It allows you to, in the first one, watch the whole thing without having to look down. Again, so this thematic film unit becomes an interpretive audiovisual instead of an interpretive listening activity. If you go down to the bottom, my very favorite quote: "It is very helpful to work with the plot ahead of time so that the movies make sense, especially because some German movies have weird stories." Das stimmt. There are a lot of weird German movies. So, my colleague put this together. These are some of the films that they've been watching over the last few years at our high school. These are some of the movies that I've shown at all 4 levels. I do not show 4 movies a year. I rotate them depending. And that's just a short list. If you would like to see some completed film units, then email me. I'm happy to share what I've done in my work. I've put them together. And just am happy to share with you. So my email is heidi.lechner@d128.org. And I would like to say Dankeschön, and thank you very much for listening. And please email me for further dialogue and conversation. And I would like to say thank you again to the National Foreign Language Center for putting on this virtual summit in such an extraordinary time and events. And I hope everybody has a great summer.